Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Outright propaganda and lies are being used to unleash the national security state against law-abiding U.S. citizens, especially Trump voters. The FBI is fishing through homes of veterans and citizens with no criminal records and restricting the liberties of individuals that have never been accused of a crime. Mr. Biden calls January 6th the worst attack since the Civil War. A president was impeached for his alleged role in that riot. It was reported early, totally unconfirmed, that an armed insurrection, quote, beat a police officer to death with a fire extinguisher. The government has even enlisted Americans to turn in their own neighbors. Federal prosecutor Michael Sherwin on CBS News 60 Minutes continued the, quote, shock and awe, end of quote, strategy. Many of my Democrat colleagues oppose the, quote, shock and awe, end of quote, strategy in Iraq. We should similarly oppose its application against American citizens. Mr. Rosen, you claimed that the DOJ would, quote, spare no resources, end of quote. Mr. Rosen, did the DOJ confiscate any firearms from suspects charged with breaching the Capitol on January 6th?
Congressman, as I alluded to in my opening remarks, there are certain limitations about pending investigations and prosecutions.
Mr. Rosen, I'll be looking forward to asking that question of people that can answer it from the Capitol Police and the FBI. But the answer is no. 0 firearms from suspects charged with breaching the Capitol. Mr. Rosen, was Officer Sicknick killed by rioters with a fire extinguisher?
Congressman, Officer Sicknick was there acting in the line of duty and went into harm's way. And I think as others have said, he acted as one of many heroes on that day.
Mr. Rosen, so, I don't take the hero lightly. He did heroically, but he died of natural causes. Mr. Rosen, was a single individual at or outside the Capitol on January 6th, have they been charged with the crime of insurrection?
Again, if you're asking me about charges that were either made, pending, or being investigated,
Mr. Rosen,
I'm sorry, I'm just not in a
again,
position to address those.
Once again, Mr. Rosen, to my knowledge, not a single person has been charged with a crime of insurrection. Mr. Rosen, do you recall the name of the young lady, a veteran wrapped in an American flag, that was killed in the U.S. Capitol?
I do. Her name was Ashley Babbitt.
Yes, Ashley Babbitt. Was Ashley Babbitt armed?
Again, Congressman, I mean to be respectful of your observations, but I just don't want to talk about individual situations.
I'm clearly reclaiming my time, Mr. Rosen. No, she wasn't. She was wrapped in a U.S. flag. Was the death of Ashley Babbitt a homicide?
Congressman, I'm not trying to be unhelpful here, but I just cannot comment.
I understand, but I mean, reclaiming my time, as the death certificate says, it was a homicide. Who executed Ashley Babbitt?
Congressman, I'm just going to have to say the same thing here, that I don't want to get into the specific facts and investigations.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Now, Chief Conte, what are the rules of engagement at the D.C. protests?
At DC protests, sir?
Yes.
Yeah, the only time that we engage in donning riot gear, that kind of thing, is when in situations where there's an actual attack that's going on, sir. I'm not sure the.
Well, I appreciate you, and thank you for your service. Madam Chairwoman, my constituents demand answers, but the truth is being censored and covered up. As a result, the DOJ is harassing peaceful patriots across the country. Without accurate answers, conspiracies continue to form. Russia hoax promoter, riot enabler, and Washington State Representative Pramila Jayapal, who objected to the electors in 2016 without the required support of a senator, filed an ethics complaint against me for following the law under 3 U.S.C. Code 15, the Electoral Count Act, which she herself failed at in 2016. 33 of my Democratic colleagues even wildly speculated that Republican members of Congress gave reconnaissance tours to protesters offering no proof whatsoever. I've repeatedly asked for the Capitol footage from before and during January 6th. Such footage would provide answers, could contain exculpatory evidence regarding the outrageous accusations against members of Congress, and most importantly, exonerate the many Americans who peacefully protested and never set foot in the Capitol. Mr. Rosen, wouldn't you agree that the security footage of a public building, of public officials, paid for by public taxpayers, potentially containing exculpatory evidence, should be provided to public defenders?
Congressman, I'm just going to have to refer to my opening remarks again,
Well,
that there are certain limitations I have here
I
today.
do, and I believe the American public should see that footage. Madam Chairwoman, I and the American people commend you for holding this hearing. If my Democratic colleagues really want the truth, they would join me in demanding the release of these Capitol surveillance footage on and the proceedings of January 6th. I yield back. Thank you.
The gentleman yields back.